All right, today we're basically playing scientific detective. We're on the trail of a hidden connection between our mental and our sexual health. We're going to follow the evidence from a huge scientific analysis and see what it reveals about two incredibly common conditions that we don't often connect.
So yeah, we're talking about depression and premature ejaculation, or PE. I mean, on their own, these conditions affect an enormous number of people. But the real story, the real mystery, starts when we ask, is there something deeper going on between them?
And that's the big question, right? For years, researchers have had this hunch. They've suspected a link. But the actual evidence? It's been all over the place, really inconsistent. It's led to a lot of debate and just uncertainty. So what does the science actually say when you finally pull all that evidence together?
To really get why this has been such a tough nut to crack, we first need to look at just how messy the research landscape was, and frankly, the sheer scale of the problem we're dealing with.
You know, the scale here is just massive. The data shows that PE can affect up to 30% of men, and depression, also incredibly common. But even with these huge numbers, that potential overlap between the two, well, it's always been a bit of a gray area.
And here's the real heart of the issue researchers were up against. You'd have some studies finding a super strong link between depression and PE. Then others would come out and say, the link is pretty weak, or even that there was no link at all. This kind of inconsistency made it almost impossible to know what to believe, leaving everyone without a clear answer.
So, how in the world do you find a clear signal through all of that scientific noise? Well, you combine the evidence. Researchers use this really powerful tool to just cut through all the confusion and finally get a definitive answer.
They did something called a meta-analysis. Now think of it like this. Imagine there's one witness to an event. Their account might be a little blurry, right? A little unreliable. But what if you combine the stories of dozens of witnesses? Suddenly you can piece together a much, much clearer picture. That is exactly what a meta-analysis does for scientific studies.
And the researchers, they were really selective. They didn't just grab any old study. They sifted through all the evidence to find only the most rigorous, the highest quality studies out there. And in the end, they landed on 8 key studies to put under the microscope.
And those 8 studies? Whoa, they were massive. When you combine them all, they included data from over 18,000 people. A sample size that big is what gives the final result its real statistical power. It makes the conclusion way more reliable than any single study could ever hope to be.
So with all this data from all these different studies around the globe, the stage was finally set. Researchers could at last move past all those conflicting results and draw one single powerful conclusion.
And this, right here, is the climax of our detective story. After putting all that data together, what did the analysis actually find?
The verdict was crystal clear. This connection, it's not a coincidence. It's not some statistical fluke. The meta-analysis found a direct and statistically significant link between depression and premature ejaculation.
The crucial piece of the puzzle really comes down to this number, 1.63. This is what's called an odds ratio. And to put it simply, it means men with depression had 1.63 times the risk of also having PE compared to men without it. This isn't just a small effect, okay? This is a really substantial, measurable increase in risk.
But hold on. The story doesn't actually end there. Because this link, it's not a simple one-way street. The research suggests it's a much more complex, kind of cyclical relationship.
This really shows us the two sides of the same coin. So on one hand, you've got the psychological weight of depression, which can directly mess with sexual function. But on the other hand, the frustration, the anxiety caused by PE, that can create a huge psychological burden that could potentially lead to or even worsen symptoms of depression.
And the researchers themselves really drive this point home. This quote, it's straight from the study, and it just highlights that this isn't a simple cause and effect thing. It's more like a feedback loop, a bidirectional or two-way street, where your mind and body are just constantly influencing each other.
Okay, so we've got a scientifically proven link. That's great, but what does this actually mean for people, in the real world? Why is this connection so important for us to understand?
Well, here are the key takeaways. We now have really strong evidence that depression is a major risk factor for PE, and that alone should change how doctors evaluate patients, hopefully looking at mental and sexual health together. It suggests that treating a person's depression might actually be a key part of managing PE. And, of course, it opens the door for so much more research into this vital connection. Ultimately, what this whole investigation shows is just how deeply our mental and physical health are tied together. This clear link between depression and PE is such a powerful reminder of that. And it kind of leaves us with one last big question. If this connection was hiding in plain sight for so long, what other important links between our mind and body are we still missing?